try to relieve the control. The control moved to the consumer. If in anything, it's primarily almost reverse marketing. And the challenge for you as a company is how do I create a platform that facilitates for the consumer to interact with me?
Right.
So the interesting thing was the example we saw about Sony. So Sony basically is not selling Sony. They created basically an opportunity for a consumer to learn about photography.
Right.
Any photography, whether it's on Canon or on Sony cameras and others. And then, but basically they create, by creating the platform, they create the loyalty to Sony.
So you believe that, just to reiterate that point, you believe that the consumer has more power than any point you've ever seen in marketing history at this point, and that's due in large part to those social networks.
Well, it's due to a variety of things.
Right.
It's due to the fact that consumers are more sophisticated. We have a whole new generation that primarily grew up on the internet. We're dealing with technology that enables this. We're having business models that enable this. Look at Priceline.com. You know, can basically let the consumer decide what the price is. You're dealing with Prosper, which is primarily, it's a, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but Prosper is primarily, it's a eBay for loans. You know, kind of why do I need the bank if I can go to others? You have Tiger 21 and other group like this, which is primarily a group of investors who are sharing information, knowledge among themselves. So I think it's a combination of these forces. And then you have this economic tsunami that happens now, and basically consumers are lost. They, you know, they cannot trust the traditional advisors, so they're going to callings.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with Stuart Brand. He spoke at the TED conference a few years ago, and he mentioned, he was talking about squatter cities, and I watched the video, and it made me think about the parallels between what happens in a squatter city and what's happening with these social networks. He said essentially in these squatter cities, the reason people are abandoning the villages and you know, traveling to these heavily, you know, densely populated residential areas, you know, despite the fact that there's high crime and high pollution, is, you know, that's where the economy is, that's where the market is. And I couldn't help but think to myself that a lot of these social networks and just networks altogether online are kind of like those squatter cities now, where, you know, you may not want to be on Facebook or MySpace, but you feel like it's essential, it's a safety net. And LinkedIn is another good example where, you know, if something goes wrong, I know I have my parachute here, so to speak. Do you agree with that kind of analogy, that kind of metaphor?
Yes, especially if you're dealing with those social networks which are focused on specific topics and people have closer relation among each other and they trust them. So yeah, that's absolutely the place. And increasingly we see today consumers don't go and buy a product before they go and do some Google search. So before they go some the comparative shopping sites and try to compare and evaluate and figure out what to do. So the consumer is much better informed. And companies historically have tended to underestimate the consumer, and they thought they could dictate with the consumers.
And on that note, do you think that the whole dynamic of that has kind of leveled the playing field for some smaller businesses who can now utilize much more cost-effective tools to spread their product, to promote the brand?
Absolutely. You can, you know, today is the time when you really can create a virtual corporation. If you think about the Li and Fang model, you really don't need to have your own manufacturing facility. You contact with them. They do the manufacturing for you. You need an R&D, you can basically contact Innocentive. You can try to develop new products there. You can use social networks in terms of reaching to consumers. Let the consumer be part of the product designers. You know, as for example, in Dell, if you're buying a Dell computer, you basically, the consumer can design your own product. And you can also promote it through the word of mouth and the marketing activities of the consumer. Referral is the most powerful approach.
And finally, just to get back to my initial point or question, sorry. As far as the larger corporations go, you could say they're kind of in an awkward spot when it comes to their role in a social network. How would you advise the leader of someone like, say, a Walmart or, a major corporation? How would you advise them to participate, what kind of role do you think they should have where they're in a social network? Do you think they should take an active part in engaging with the customers on there? Should they use more of a blog approach? I mean, is it a mixture of all?
There is no one solution that fits all. But I will try to focus on customer segments. I had a session this morning here, kind of part of the roundtable discussions on, I don't remember exactly the title, but it was something along the line of why are we branding our product and not our customers? And the idea behind it is that if I'm Walmart and I have a variety of segments of customers among my customers and prospects, let's identify more homogeneous groups that have very unique needs. Create social networks around them. Create reinforcing around them. We talk about pharmaceuticals down in the session. Talk about pharmaceutical companies as opposed to being organized by silos, which are therapeutic, basically, solution for diabetes, hypertension, and so on. Focus on customers, a customer segment that have diabetes and cholesterol, segment that has diabetes, cholesterol, and hypertension, and for each one of them, offer integrated solution of everything. Basically, the diet, the exercise, the medication, the education, the support they need from the families and others. And by doing it, you'll create very loyal groups that will come to you. And you then don't even have to provide everything, but you're becoming then an integrator as opposed to a component, provider of a component. You're taking the role of integrator.
So with the case of a store, a major retailer like a Walmart, they could do that through several different communities. One maybe designated for a lawn and garden section, one for their home improvement section. Communities for each of those respective departments.
That's one cut. The other cut is people concerned about green, the green revolution. People concerned primarily, so the green revolution can cut across all of these. So I think people are primarily interested in activities and kind of the process of doing things. This can be both in-house, do it yourself in the house, or it can be the lawn and garden outside. So that's where they really should start examining where are the best ways for them to experiment, how best to slice the audience.
Okay, all right. Any other just comments about your observations? That you, like I said, you obviously you've been studying business for
a long time.
Long time. I'll say it that way. But just your thoughts, I guess, just overall on the current economy and where we're headed, where you think we're headed.
The economy is in a mess, which I think provides huge opportunities for companies. Huge opportunities in a number of areas. One is most organizations, especially large organizations, over the years, organizations are like collection of band-aids. Because something went wrong, they added this. So all of them, if they will take a systematic look and say, what really should we do? What are the type of activities? What are the right things to do as opposed to just things we've done? Can get probably a fair amount of cost savings in the operation. Two, there are huge opportunity for upgrading the talent. There are so many people now, very talented people outside looking for a job. Unfortunately, any organization, or fortunately, any organization, obviously the talent pool follows a normal curve. And you can easily take the bottom part of the curve, the bottom 10%, 20%, third of the organization, and if there's not much potential there for improvement, just think about getting rid of them and then replacing them with some of the real talent which is outside on the marketplace. So at times of crisis like this offer huge opportunities in terms of refreshing the talent pool of the company. Third, there are tons of basically undervalued assets. The market is far from perfect, and there is a lot of very undervalued assets, which means that you may be able to hire, basically buy other companies, competencies, a product. So there is real opportunities for doing it. And four, I think that the challenge in getting out of this is primarily in terms of how do I start creating demand for my offering? And that's a good opportunity because of the crisis and because people know what the traditional way we did things do not work.
Right.
To rethink, come up with more innovative solutions. So I'm very optimistic in terms of the fact that the time of crisis, what we'll have is we'll probably have the greatest incentive for better, more innovative approaches to try to achieve our objective. People will become much more concerned about the return on investment in marketing, which has been a lot of this. There was a recent study I just saw that 60% of the advertising budget is being wasted. Be more creative. Don't just continue doing the same thing you've done before.
Right.
Be more creative. Use what you heard here from Dwayne. It's a spectacular, beautiful commercial. $5,000 through the network. User-generated commercial.
Right.
Start leveraging the power of the open. Again, the whole idea of the open innovation, the network orchestration. All of these are perfect for today's environment.
Right. I think that's just about everything.